So I don't think you can say there's any one way that an investor is responding to the risks that they're facing or trying to assess around climate-related risks. But what we're seeing is a real hunger for knowledge. They're trying to understand what the risks are, and they are then asking either corporates or ourselves how we're thinking about it as well. So you see them both building up their institutional structure, people, systems, to understand these issues, and then you see them going out and asking questions. And so what we're seeing from our perspective is that they're asking us a number of questions that we're needing to respond to. So how are we taking into account climate-related risks in our credit ratings? And so we've been increasing the amount of research we've been publishing in that area. Last year, before COP21, we published a sort of heat map research piece that explained how we assess the risk for 86 sectors globally, nearly $70 trillion worth of debt. And that was just a ranking system that highlighted the most to least exposed sectors from climate-related risks. And that was a starting point for us. And we found that the investors, responded well to that, and so that's helping us, that's stratifying the risks. We're needing to do that ourselves, but we need more. Okay, so we've just published today, actually, in the lead up to this summit, a further report that looks at carbon transition risk. Okay, how do we think about assessing that? We decided we need to essentially, for our own purposes, establish a baseline scenario based on Paris Agreement commitments. And then we provided an assessment of how you look at the transmission mechanisms by which that scenario can be assessed as a risk sector by sector, and we've provided a couple of case studies around auto and utility sectors. So I'd say, if I was just going to wrap up on that, there's a lot of need for knowledge. I think it's a very complicated subject that is changing rapidly. And so what you're seeing are investors are asking questions, setting up their own systems and their structures, and asking questions of us and companies and governments. A big stepping stone, a big step change, if you like, was the Paris Agreement, right? COP21 culminating in what's now known as the Paris Agreement. I think it changed the dynamic dramatically for everybody. It created this belief and momentum that carbon transition risk was real, that it was going to occur, that there was going to be a pathway towards a low carbon economy. But now what needs to happen is there needs to be a transformation of that agreement into policy commitments, actionable policy outcomes. Because to change the economy in the way that's been talked about, there are many estimates out there about the expense of that, but there is a dramatic amount of investment that needs to go into that the global financial community can provide, and that businesses can move towards taking advantage of and adapting to, but they need policy certainty. And so what we would say, and actually it's a very common theme in the conference room right now, is that it's important that these policy settings are turned into actionable policy outcomes.